Hello everyone and welcome to MikroTik Labs for Beginners. My name is Mahar Haddad and I am the trainer of this course. Let's go directly to the first slide and see what we have to do in this lab. So by end of this lecture we are going to be able to connect to the MikroTik router or router board using the Winbox tool, and then we have to understand how to use the Winbox and to use it to be able to configure and troubleshoot our MikroTik router, and of course we are going to do our first lab. Okay, so this course is going to be more labs than theory. Okay, I really suggest that if you have problems in the theory behind of this lab, then you can possibly subscribe to some courses which are available on Udemy. Now, of course, you can learn the theory, and then labs will be very easy for you to be applying it. Okay. So here is what we have. We are now having a MikroTik router over here, which is connected to our PC, or let's say we would like to connect it now via cable to our PC. So here are the steps that we have to go through, and those steps are really like for the entry of how to configure MikroTik router. Okay, so let's see what we have to do in this lab. Now we have first to connect here the Ethernet 1 of the router interface Ethernet 1 to the PC using the UTP cable. Okay, at my side here I have already installed my router. It has been resetted also, there's no configuration on it, and I have connected my network card of my PC via cable to the MikroTik router of Ethernet 1 interface. And then I have to download Winbox from the MikroTik website. Okay, I will open here www.mikrotik.com. Alright, from here you can go to download, and then from download over here you have to scroll down, and then you have the Winbox version 3.4. So I will click on it and downloading. Open the folder, and then I move it to my desktop. Okay. Okay, so we go back to the steps here. So we are now on the step number 2, website with an E here. And then we need now to start connecting to the router. Okay, we have to connect to the router via Winbox using the username admin and the password blank. Just to show you here, this is the lab what we have. Actually, the first thing you have to recognize with MikroTik is that your password is always blank and the username is admin. So as I have already resetted my router, I have no default configuration on it. So now I will go to Winbox. This is the router that we are going to work on. What you can see here when you open Winbox, it will directly discover which router is in the neighbor if you are connected via cable like or via wireless or any type of connectivity. Okay, here it shows you the MAC address of the router, and it shows you also the IP. As the router doesn't have an IP, so because it's just resetted, so it shows zeros, but the MAC address normally is always built in on the network card interface of the router, so that's why it shows here. Now you may ask me now, how is possible that we can connect to the router if we don't have an IP? And the beauty of the MikroTik is that you can connect to the router using the MAC address of the router. So I just put on it, and it shows here connect to admin. The login is fine, admin password we leave it blank, and then connect. And here we go. Now we are connected to the MikroTik router. That's our first connection to the router. Let's check what we need to do at other steps also. So step number 3 is also done. Now check the IP address of the router and set an IP address of the same range on your PC. It's always highly recommended to put or to make connectivity between. If we go back here to the graph here, we are now connected to the MAC address, right? We said that we're using now the MAC address here. So, but I always recommend to put an IP here. So we put an IP address over here, and of course on the interface here we put an IP address to be in the same range. And then we have a layer 3 connectivity between our Winbox or our PC and the MikroTik router. Is way much better than you are on connectivity with MAC addresses, because the MAC address sometimes it's really not very stable. Okay, so I really highly recommend that we put an IP address, and that's really the step that we need to do now. Okay, so let's go here and see what we have to check if we have an IP, and then we have to put an IP address on the PC and most probably on the router to be in the same range. To do that, inside here, but before I start doing this task, let me just show you a little bit about the Winbox. This is the Winbox over here. These are all places where you can do your configuration and your troubleshooting. For instance, if you want to know how many interfaces you have here, you can just click on interface. You have 4 interfaces and you have WLAN, which is off. I'm using now interface number 1. All these are tabs you can find over here that you can really make changes. Also here for the wireless, all configuration that you need to make on the wireless, you can find it over here. So it's really a very nice tool. I would say the router and also the Winbox, they're really very efficient for people who are really looking for some cost-effective router product and really very stable. Okay. Now, I have to check if we have an IP address, so I have to go to IP and then I go to addresses. Okay, as you can see here in this list, I have absolutely no IP address on my router. They asked us to put it on the same range. Yeah, I will pick up an IP address now. I will say, well, let's put on. I'm now connected to Ethernet 2, right? So I put 10.0.0.1/24. I'm putting now this IP on Ethernet 1. You can see when you want to add something, you just click on plus. When you want to delete something, you just make it click on minus. And if you want to disable it, you can just on this cross here, you just make it like this and then it's disabled. You want to enable it, you just make it enable. Okay, so plus is to create, minus is to delete. All right, now I have an IP address on my Ethernet interface. Let me now also get an IP address on my PC from the same range as they asked us. I go to my adapter here, and that is my local area network, and then I say 10.0.0.2, okay, 255.255.255.0. I can put also this the gateway. Now, before I go to the step number 5, let me just disconnect from the router now, because I'm connecting now, or I'm connected via the MAC address. Now you can see I have an IP over here, right? Because I just set it. And then if I connect to it now, I'm connecting to the IP and not to the MAC address anymore, so it's more stable. Okay, now step number 5. Ping from your PC to the router. Does it work? Let's try. I will go to my command line here, and I will try to ping from my PC to 10.0.0.1. That's the router. As you can see, I have a reply. Very well. Actually, if I didn't have a reply, then I would not be able to be connected to Winbox via the IP address. Yeah. Now, the step number 6 is to change the identity of the router to MikroTik Lab 1. So what is the identity? As you can see here, the name of the router is MikroTik. Okay, if I want that, the name is always important, because I can differentiate this router as let's say, in which department in my company. Okay, so it's always to use the identity that we would like to give it to the router. So now if I go to system here and then to identity, and now what is the identity? It's my MIK Lab 1. Okay, MIK Lab 1. So this is how we do it. System, identity, you change it and then you say, okay, and look here directly, it's changing now. So now again, if I disconnect, and now I want to connect again, and then you can see now the identity has shown here on my Winbox. That's very important that you always put the name here, which refers to something that you know that this router is installed in that place. Okay, this step is also done. Now, connect your router via webconfig and via SSH. Here, I want to go back to my graph here, and I want to show you something. Actually, what we have done now is we have connected to the router from my PC using Winbox to connect to the router. Okay, there are some other ways to connect to the router. One of them is to use the webconfig. Webconfig is to connect to the router via HTTP, means via browser. Instead of installing Winbox on my computer or download it to my computer and then to make the change I need on the router, I can, from the URL, put the IP address of the router, and then in this case I can also log in and then I can do the change needed. So that is what we call the webconfig. We have another way also to connect to the router, but that's a command line here. is either by Telnet or by SSH. Both of them are command line. The difference between the Telnet and the SSH is Telnet send all the command that we do clear text. Okay, clear text means it's just if someone is able to sniff our connectivity, he can really get the command that we are sending to the router. While at SSH, it's encrypted. Okay, it's encrypted, it's more secured, and then we are sure that what we are sending in no one is intercepting them and see what we're putting as command on the router. Okay, so these are the ways that we can connect to the MikroTik router. So now the question they ask us is to connect to the router via webconfig and via SSH. As we have already set an IP address on this router, which is 10.0.0.1, right? 10.0.0.1. And here we set an IP address of 10.0.0.2. That's on the same range. Then in this case, what I can do, I can just go to my browser here, and I can say, well, I want to connect to 10.0.0.1. Okay, as you can see, I'm directly logging to the web config, and that's really where configuration is coming. And here I am now inside the router, right? As you can see, it's really similar to Winbox. Look what we have here in this is Winbox. Okay, let me just make it smaller. Look at the settings here: quick set, Capsman, wireless, bridge, same, PPP, mesh. Okay. But I always like to work more on Winbox because it's not a web interface. Alright, so you can see here if you go to IP, we just check now IP address. Yeah, you can see this is the IP address that we have set. You can remove it, you can apply on, put another one. Okay, so it's really a very nice way to do the configuration via, if you don't have the Winbox. If you have Winbox, always use Winbox. That's my recommendation to you. So the lab was saying here, connect web config, we did, and via SSH. Via SSH. To connect via SSH, you need to have a software, a small software like PuTTY, for instance. I think I don't have it here, so let me just try to download it from the internet. Let's see. PuTTY download. Okay. Yeah, let's see this one. You can download PuTTY. That's a freeware software that you can download it. Okay. So now we have the PuTTY already on our computer. I will stop this lecture here and I will continue the lab in the upcoming lecture.